Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Path Towards Remembrance. And today's topic is the levels of the multidimensional self. There's a lot of different conversations about the higher self and the eternal self and different levels of our multidimensional identity. And I think as we start to integrate our eternal self quantum, which is actually one of the main goals in order to be able to go with the flow of the eternal host, we need to integrate those different aspects of ourselves that have been left on different timelines and throughout different dimensional planes. It is actually worth knowing how this entire structure looks like. So what we are going to look into today will be the different levels of our identity and how they are actually coming together and reuniting once again with our core self, which is our source identity. So this will be almost like an introduction to what I will be elaborating on the upcoming levels of the PLASMAREGENESIS Masterclass that are starting from March. So I suggest we take a look. I'm going to share the screen and we are going to go through this presentation that will enable us to understand this entire structure a little bit better. So if you are interested in signing up for the new edition of PLASMAREGENESIS Masterclass, you can check out the link that is on this slide, or it's also in the description under the video. There is still, I would say, over a week to sign up for the classes. So if you are interested in signing up and going through more of the different activations, regardless whether you're new to this work or whether you have been following me for quite a while, there's 3 different levels of PLASMAREGENESIS that I will be doing, and on each one of them we'll be discovering a lot of interesting things about our multidimensional anatomy. But it's worth mentioning that the classes are mostly focused on the practical aspect, where you are basically learning very useful tools and techniques that are supposed to assist you with your eternal self integration. So I will begin with kind of trying to just go through a little bit on something that is referred to as the individuation process. So how are we actually becoming individuals? Meaning we know that everything is a part of one larger source consciousness, but how all of this actually works? I mean, how do we go through this process of individuation, and how do we come back into that full oneness once again? So there are a few steps to this, and they contain a lot of different strange terms, so I will be just explaining this as we go through. So on the first step, the Aya undifferentiated units of consciousness reside within the Ephium source void, meaning that the Ephium source void is referring to the pure source consciousness field, the primordial source consciousness field, from which everything comes from. So that means that nothing really exists on the outside of the source. Everything is a part of this transcendental consciousness. And so in the beginning, we almost have those units of consciousness that are referred to as Aya, and they are a part of the source consciousness. However, they don't really have any kind of individuation of their own. They are just a part of everything that is. And those units of consciousness, referred to as Aya, can choose to take on their own individual form through something that is referred to as the Unasa source creation cycle. And those are basically the transcendental cycles throughout which the source consciousness is going through multiple experiences within the structure of the cosmoversal creation bubbles. And that's how the source consciousness is learning more about itself. So right now, as we are learning about this, we are in the middle of the creation cycle. So let's take a look what happens. When the Unasa source creation cycle begins, a portion of the Aya consciousness densifies itself into a central still point, referred to as the eye of Sarah, the eye of God. This portion of the Aya consciousness is referred to as the Yusa wave. So from that Ephium source void, a certain portion of this Aya consciousness units kind of, let's say, densifies itself into a certain still point, and this still point is referred to as the eye of Sarah or the eye of God. And from that still point, the Yusa wave re-emerges, and that Yusa wave is already, in a way, individuated, still united with the source consciousness, but already holding a certain level of individuation. And that Yusa wave is basically containing the quantum that will be used for the entirety of the UNASA source creation cycle. So we are technically all a part of the Yusa wave because we are in the middle of such creation cycle. So from the eye of God, the transcendental structure of the source body is born, and that transcendental structure of the source body is composed of the quantum of the Yusa wave. And this is something that I'm teaching further on my PLASMAREGENESIS classes about the structure of the source body that is composed of 3 main layers within which the entire creation cycle is taking place. And within one of the layers of the source body, we have a structure that is referred to as the ephemerium. And within ephemerium, we have various fields of the creation bubbles within which the entire experiential reality is taking place, and we are inside of one of such creation bubbles. On the next step, within the ephemerium transcendental dominion of the source body, that is referred to as the manifestation templates manufacturing center, the consciousness gestalts are being born by progressive individuation and spiritualization taking place. So that means that before a consciousness gestalt, which is like an aspect of the Yusa wave that wants to take on a form of its own, before it actually chooses to incarnate into the structure of the cosmoversal creation bubble, it is basically going through a certain process of individuation that takes place within the ephemerium, because that's where the manifestation templates for the creation of this reality are taking place. Once individuated, the consciousness gestalt is ready to begin its experience within one of the cosmoversal creation bubbles. It's as simple as that. And from there, a consciousness gestalt transitions from the ephemerium and directly into the cosmoversal creation bubble. Once individuated, the Yuna core self consciousness gestalt may choose to stay with the universal one source field, or it can choose to experience itself into one of the cosmoversal creation bubbles. If the consciousness gestalt chooses to go through the process of individuation, it goes through the transcendental UNASA source window that is right in the center of every cosmoversal creation bubble, and it externalizes on the other side as the eternal Euradian self-identity within the eternal creation domain. The eternal self-identity holds all the simultaneous memories, experiences, knowledge, and identities of all the smaller expressions of itself within the 3 creation domains. Certain types of consciousness gestalts referred to as the Yasa primordial creators can have experience in a few creation bubbles at the same time. So that basically means that when we are still within the source field, already individuated but still in the source field, we are our core self source Yuna identity. They are referred to as the Yuna gestalts. But the moment we enter the cosmoversal creation bubble, we become the eternal self, the Euradian self. And basically, as we enter the cosmoversal creation bubble, there are 2 main processes throughout which we are kind of downstepping, meaning that we are seeding multiple aspects of our identity into the reality fields of the cosmoversal creation bubble. And then there are different processes throughout which we are once again picking up those aspects, putting them together into one unified eternal Euradian self-identity. And then we are unifying again with our core source self gestalt, the Una. Those processes are referred to as the transplanial downstepping process and the transplanial upstepping process, also referred to as ascension. So when all of those spiritual communities are speaking about the ascension process, it is about picking up all of those aspects of yourself that you have seeded into this creation. And it's about connecting them with one eternal core in order to remove that, let's say, overlay of separation between those aspects and realize that they are all one consciousness that is one as well with the primordial source. So a process through which the consciousness gestalt seeds a portion of its quantum in form of various aspects into the three domains of the cosmoversal creation bubble is referred to as the transplanial downstepping process. So this is the process that we are going through the moment we enter this cosmoversal creation bubble. And most of us have been here for a very, very long time. We have been downstepping ourselves all the way until we got into this level of the third dimension of the external creation and got a little bit stuck here. And as we are kind of approaching the finalization of the UNASA source creation cycle, during which we are going through all of those experiences that we are learning about, there is a moment when we have to go back the same way we originally came through, meaning that we go through the process of the transplanial upstepping, also known as ascension. So, a process through which the consciousness gestalt reintegrates all of its aspects that have been seeded into the three domains of the cosmoversal creation bubble and integrates them into a common core, referred to as the Eura, is referred to as the transplanial upstepping process, ascension. So, a very important thing about the transcendental host is that we can do this ascension process much quicker. We can unify those aspects of ourselves from multiple dimensions very, very quickly. Because normally the way that all of this works is that you have, let's just trace your way through the external creation. Let's assume that there's some kind of a gestalt that was a deity and then it decided to incarnate on Andromeda, then Arcturus, then Sirius, and then Earth. So in order for that consciousness gestalt to integrate its entire external creation self, it needs to first integrate its Earth identity, then its Sirian identity, then I think I was saying Arcturus, Andromeda, and then it can go further to the internal creation. So it's kind of like there is no universal single pathway for everyone. You are going through your ascension exactly the way you came through. So it's not like everyone will go the same way, I don't know, to Median Earth or to Andromeda. Each one of us have our own individual pathways. What the transcendental host is doing is that it's enabling you not to necessarily go up the staircase in a very slow way. It's allowing you to progressively bring all of those aspects from other dimensions into your core so that you could transition in a much accelerated way either into the internal, eternal, or even the transcendental domains of the source field. So this is basically the main difference. And we have those different levels of selves, and now let's analyze each one of them. So we have the higher self, which may be coming from dimension 4, 5, 6, etc. It is any of our identity from higher dimensions, and it may be fallen due to the higher dimensional distortions. So if we look at this structure here, this diagram is representing our identity levels on the level of the external creation. As we know, we have 3 creation domains: the external, internal, and eternal. And as we go through the process of ascension, we are progressively ascending to the higher levels of domains that are holding more and more of the connection to their own source point. So we are an incarnate on the level of dimension 3, in the level of external creation. Then we have our soul that covers dimensions from 4 to 6. Then we have our oversoul that covers dimensions from 7 to 9. Then the avatar dimensions from 10 to 12, and the rishi dimensions from 13 to 15. And as you integrate all of those aspects of yourself, then basically you become the Mashayanic self, which is basically the highest level of your identity on the level of the external creation. One rishi composed of the one Mashayanic self composed of the 12 rishi, and then the rishi having 12 avatars, and then the avatar having 12 oversouls, etc., etc. Basically, there's always this process of the spherical self-expression into 12 aspects. So all of those aspects on the level of the external creation are referred to as the higher selves. Your soul might be your higher self, your avatar might be your higher self. And then the entire trickery of this creation bubble is that many of those aspects basically suffered fall, and then they started acting against you, meaning that your oversoul may have fallen, and then it might have had a negative influence on your soul, and then your soul started to affect you. So a very important aspect of the eternal self-integration is basically making sure that all of those aspects are being at least offered to the host so that they can go through their own healing process so that you could eventually integrate them with yourself. The next level that we have after the external creation aspects is the authentic deity self, which is an organic aspect of your eternal self identity. One eternal self is holding 12 deity authentic selves. It already knows itself as an eternal being that is a conscious creator, a part of your larger cosmic identity of the Christar, and at the same time, your authentic deity self is expressing itself through the structure of the internal plasma body. You are so-called a deity ascent once you fully integrate your authentic deity self-identity. So I'm just going to read this very briefly because this will help us understand what is the eternal self. Because as I said, let's look at it this way. The deity self is on the level of the internal creation. Its vessel is the plasma body. And 12 deity selves compose a single eternal self, which is your Euradian self, that is holding your eternal body, which is the Urea body. So let's take a look. An eternal Euradian self holds the encryption for all its 12 plasma authentic self-expressions, each one of them expressing itself through one of the 12 Uraeon suns of the Uradeira field. So if we look at the structure of the Rushay, the Euradian self is almost like in the center. It is like the 13th sun that has the ability to progressively reintegrate all of the 12 that it is surrounded with. And within each one of those 12 suns, we can find one deity self. During the internal creation deity plane, time cycles, a Mashayanic identity transfigures its entire quantum into one unified authentic self-identity. During the eternal creation Urada cycles, all the 12 authentic selves are unified into the one core eternal self, First, Yura-Deya expression of the Aya God source. This completes the entire process of the integration of the full Christar identity. So, as we basically go through the cycles of the deity, we are integrating our deity self, becoming the deity ascent. And then this deity ascent is going, and as this deity ascent is fully integrated, what happens is that it's going through a certain process that is referred to as the Elasian celestial transit, throughout which the 5 layers, the 5 elemental templates of the plasma body template are getting unified into the structure of the ephemeral rainbow body. And then this ephemeral rainbow body gets in touch with the structure of the Yura-Deira field of the 12 suns. And then this ephemeral rainbow self can reconnect with the entire structure of the Yura-Deira field, meaning also with its eternal self. So that's how it works. And then we have the last level, which is the core self. It is the transcendental core self-identity of the consciousness gestalt residing in the one source field. As I said before, it is your core self-identity before you actually incarnated into this plane of existence, into the cosmoversal creation bubble. So as the eternal Euradian self is going through the process of integration and review of all of its aspects, because your Urea body is holding all of the aspects of your identity put together, it is progressively going through the process of the transition to the one source field, Unacore. So I would say it's relatively simple. In order to understand how all of this works even better, there is a certain thing that I would like to mention here. And it is the natural process of integrating the Mashayanic identity. The Mashayanic identity is the full external creation identity. And basically, it goes through certain cycles through which it is coming back into its core. Because if we notice it this way, our external bodies are like all over the place. You can find yourself in dimension 4, 5, 6, etc. All of it is kind of like on the outside of you, so to speak. But then when you have your plasma body, it's on the inside of yourself. It's on the inside of your physical body, which is your point of focus right now. So as the Mashayanic identity is going through the processes of, let's say, transfiguration of its quantum into the internal deity plasma units, it's actually not really expanding itself anymore. It's almost like bringing itself back into the common core, which later becomes known as the Yura point. Let's take a look. A Mashayanic identity, first organically in normal circumstances, becomes an ascended master holding all its expressions in the state of oneness through the Akashi expansion cycles, and later goes through the cycles of the Adashi return, through which all its simultaneous aspects are being transfigured and brought into its immaculate expression of the internal creation plasma body. The external light body united quantum of all the unified aspects goes through the process of returning to its core and then coming out again as the pre-light pure plasma internal substance. The process ends up with full integration of the authentic self-identity. So this is how it works. As I said, light body is about expanding yourself in all directions throughout all the dimensional planes. But then the internal creation is about bringing back all of those aspects into the common core. So in order to summarize that, this integration of the eternal self, or if you prefer to call it the transplanial upstepping process, is taking place throughout a few stages. First, we have something that is called ascension in simple terms, and this is the integration of the external incarnate soul, oversoul, avatar, and rishi identities into a Mashayana ascended master. Then we go through the process of deification, which is the transfiguration of the external Mashayanic identity into the internal deity authentic self-identity. Then we go through the ethernalization, which is the transmutation of the internal deity authentic self into the eternal Euradian self-identity. Finally, we have the unification, which is the vaporization of the eternal Euradian self-identity into union with the unicore self-consciousness gestalt, becoming one with the Aya source consciousness. These four processes of consciousness integration are essential for the full embodiment of the various aspects of a consciousness gestalt and its union with the Aya God source transcendental consciousness. So basically, it might kind of feel like this process might take ages to actually complete, to be able to integrate so many aspects at the same time. But there is a faster way to do this, and this is the path of the host. So I will kind of explain how this works by kind of comparing it to different types of ascension. Because there's many spiritual agendas that are speaking about something that is called the vertical ascension. And basically it's like you're ascending to dimension 5, or I don't know, you're ascending to dimension 10. All of it is the vertical ascension. You're just going up through the dimensional scale. But there is a different way to integrate all the dimensions and all the probabilities at the same time, and that is so-called diagonal ascension. So I'm kind of going to show how that works and how we can make it happen. So going through time means accreting frequency. The more frequency spectra your personal biofields can hold, the quicker you will keep moving through the personal and planetary time cycles. Normally, we would keep accreting energies and expanding form, going vertically up the dimensional scale, and that is referred to as the vertical ascension. However, now what we are doing is that through the host field, we bring a certain aspect of our identity, and we immediately integrate it with our authentic identity, instead of having to integrate all our aspects first and then begin the process of their transfiguration, which would take a much longer period of time. So it's like the moment you bring those aspects, they are being immediately transfigured into the structure of either the plasma or the urea body quantum. This way, we are going to reach the immaculation point much quicker than we normally would. Whenever we integrate an aspect of ourselves into us, we clear any kinds of distortions that this aspect used to carry, and we also bring it back to its organic immaculate encryption. This is a mission that each one of us who has decided to start a conscious path of spiritual integration has to accomplish. So this is what I wrote down like over a year ago. And at that time, I had no clue about what this really means, only to a certain extent. So now there's definitely a lot more answers. So I will just present you with the definition of the vertical and the diagonal ascension, and this way it will make a lot more sense. So the vertical ascension takes place throughout the 4 density systems of the external creation, allowing for the progressive integration of the 12-dimensional planetary body, for progressive quantum integration of the full Mashayanic ascended identity. Meaning that you go through those density accretion cycles, so like you integrate dimensions 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12, and then you're basically integrating your Rishi, dimensions 13 to 15, that's already called a transfiguration cycle. And then this Rishi is basically becoming a part of your Mashayanic ascended identity. And this is a process that takes ages. The best way to do it is the diagonal ascension, which is a transplanial ascension. Through activation of the transplanial body, either the internal plasma body or the eternal urea body, a new pathway opens up, allowing for simultaneous accretion and integration of all 12 of its probability dominion sets located on various harmonic planes, significantly accelerating the integration process that finalizes with deification of the identity into a halfway ascended internal authentic deity identity, or into the fully ascended Euradian eternal self identity, depending whether you're aligning with the internal or the eternal host. So the diagonal ascension allows you to go in this direction, where you're integrating not just the dimensional planes, but you're going much quicker, and you're also integrating the other probabilities on the way. So I hope that makes sense. It's kind of like going not on a vertical, but on the diagonal line that allows you to reach the goal much quicker. So the diagonal ascension is basically about the plasma and the urea body activation, and then uniting all the aspects of your identity into the common core, which is usually the Ura point. Okay, so before we finish, let's take a look at the concept of the fallen aspects and how does this actually work with what kind of most important integrations need to be done on our journey towards integration. So here is like a small insight on what actually happened with those fallen aspects and the higher dimensions. Due to multiple structural distortions and metatronic reversals on several planes of existence, the local time matrix of Antalya, which is the name of our universe, our local universe, became one of the most rapidly developing places with the fallen systems and the fallen forms of life that lost the connection to their source zero point. Infiltration of multiple dimensional planes led to progressive hijacking of consciousness forms inhabiting these areas, significantly decreasing the eternal life potential. And that has been mostly because of the Black Dragon invasion. In the 15-dimensional light body anatomy, every form of consciousness has multiple aspects of itself on various existential planes of the 15-dimensional structure. Reversals of the higher dimensions cause the phenomenon referred to as the fallen higher self aspects or a shadow self. So that means that it's not like there is really a shadow self. There is a certain structure that is creating the shadow, and those are those fallen aspects of yourself. So it's not like you are the shadow or you have some other external form that you can call a shadow body. Shadow body is a result of the fragmentations of your energy quantum, as well as the fallen aspects. This means that there is a potential for the existence of higher dimensional aspects that suffer the metatronic reversal, which is the reversal of their light body form, and disconnection from their source zero point. Such fallen aspects may have an influence on the lower dimensional aspects, affecting their behavioral patterns and distorting the auric field configuration. Existence of the fallen aspect is one of the main reasons behind the so-called unconscious projections, like those nasty disturbing thoughts you get on the back of your head, and energetic attacks coming through the fields of many individuals. So if you kind of feel like someone is sending you energetic attacks, but they are not conscious of that, the answer is simple. They have a lot of fallen aspects of themselves. Now let's take a look at what are those main types of the missing quantum that we may have, because we have the fallen aspects, but also there's those other types of fragmentations that are worth looking into. So we have something referred to as the soul shards, which result when the entire quantum of an identity gets stuck or frozen in time. This phase locks and isolates the entire probability dominion from other probability dominions of the three-dimensional harmonic set. So that means that if you have like the 12 probable selves, as if they were on a clock, that probable self is getting isolated from the rest of the structure, and the aspect of the soul that this probable self is holding is also getting stuck, and that is known as the soul shard. Soul shards are usually a result of massive planetary galactic disasters and resets, the blank slate technology, or direct fragmentation of the soul matrix structure. Then we have the inner child quantum, which is actually, I would say, one of the main things that all of us should focus on integrating these days. The inner child quantum represents missing aspects of the incarnating identity while it was going through its frequency accretion cycles. Trapped inner child aspects may distort the emotional or mental body structures, disrupting the horizontal ascension process and full integration of a certain immediate incarnation or an incarnational aspect. Trapped inner child aspects are usually a result of the childhood trauma, sexual abuse, abductions, or projections coming from the past, future, incarnational aspects. Inner child is an aspect of our soul matrix, a very foundation of it. So if you want to work on the eternal self-integration, this cannot be omitted. And finally, we have the missing incarnational aspects, which represent the missing quantum of the probable self-identity from various incarnations. These aspects get stuck on a certain timeline, potentially spreading the encryption of this timeline to all past, future incarnational aspects, along with any kind of imprints they might be holding. Missing incarnational aspects are usually a result of traumas, multidimensional interference, karmic ancestral imprints, or fallen timelines inserted into the planetary collective field. So integration of those three types of the missing quantum is essential if you want to fully integrate your eternal self. And there's also quite a few of those different solar and galactic attunements that I think are quite interesting to take a look at. Those are the general distortions that we might be holding on a collective level. Very often there's different aspects of us that are stuck on various planets of the solar system. There's a lot of experimentation and the DNA hijacking taking place there, especially on planets such as the Mercury. Mercury is like where there's like a lot of experimentation with the heavy metals. We've got Jupiter and Saturn, same case. There could be also the artificial connection to the moon egregor and blockage on the astral field. That basically, if you are very much affected by the full moon or like the lunar eclipse, all of this is kind of creating a certain energy around it where you are usually connected to the egregor that is affecting you this way. False interface with the rings of Saturn, which is an artificial attunement with the false Babylonian Sumerian timeline. There's a lot of people that are kind of holding this blueprint, and then they are more vulnerable to attacks from different secret societies. There are the missing aspects of quantum in the Oort cloud, which is on the peripheries of the solar system. The Oort cloud serves as a magnetic field that puts the solar system into a quarantine zone, separated from other systems completely. We also have the connection to the core of the Milky Way galaxy, which is the black hole system, even though that's not so much of the case anymore because the Dark River Passage got buffered in May of 2024. There could be also the false alignment with the Syrian and Pleiadian stellar systems, that is the fallen Egyptian timeline, and a part of the 5D agenda. And also the false alignment with the trumpet pulse station in Phantom Arcturus. This is reversing the light body and the plasma body structures. So basically, in order to integrate our eternal self quantum, the best way is to utilize one of the three main host pathways, which is the internal host, eternal, and the transcendental host. Those pathways are basically taking place simultaneously through the blending of those time wave templates together. So it's as if the planet is right now running three timelines simultaneously. If you are interested in learning more about it, there is basically a short video that I prepared before about the three Ascension host pathways. So you can check it out under the same name if you haven't seen it yet. So as I said, the registration for the PLASMAREGENESIS Masterclass is open. So if you are interested in learning about more of the practical ways on how to integrate your eternal self quantum, how to deal with the fallen dimensional aspects and such, all of the techniques are available through the PLASMAREGENESIS Masterclass that I am teaching. So the offer is there, you can take it. And also there's a lot of meditations and workshops that you can find on my website under this link right here. So feel free to check it out and see if any of them will resonate with you. For now, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something interesting. And I suppose I will be seeing soon on the upcoming videos. Take care and see you soon. Bye bye.